I can imagine some kind of snotty family gossip. Joseph, he's moving again based on a dream. And now he's ended up in stupid old Nazareth, this backcountry place. That Joseph, he's just going to have this little bad career. What a loser.
Joseph. Poor guy. Welcome to Season 2 of The Laughing Mystics, an unorthodox journey through the liturgical year with Laura Lewis-Barr and Marcy Mederi. Hello and welcome to The Laughing Mystics. Today is Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
Hold on to your hats.
Woo-hoo-hoo, this is going to be a wild ride.
It is.
So,
Hold on.
Hello, Laura.
Hi, Marcy.
And hello, good listeners.
And thank you to one of our listeners, Mary Sue, who reached out and said she was enjoying our podcast. She called it fun. I'll be curious what you think about this one, Mary Sue. But thank you so much for listening.
So before we start with the readings, I guess I want to be very clear that family is love. And this Feast of the Holy Family, the readings are very specific to the region and the time that they were written. But from my point of view, and I think I can put Laura in this as well, is that we acknowledge and appreciate all families, and no matter how they look, and that they're all holy as long as there's love.
Oh, for sure. And I think today is a day of readings that illustrate what we're about, which is this wrestling with the tradition and traditional readings and what do we do with them today, and in real time working that out. So Marcy and I don't know what we're going to say, but we both know that these readings may provide some juicy challenges.
Yes, I'm quite certain. A reading from the book of Sirach. God sets a father in honor over his children. A mother's authority he confirms over her sons. Whoever honors his father atones for his sins and preserves himself from them. When he prays, he is heard. He stores up riches and reveres his mother. Whoever honors his father is gladdened by children, and when he prays, is heard. Whoever reveres his father will live a long life. He who obeys his father brings comfort to his mother. My son, take care of your father when he is old. Grieve him not as long as he lives. Even if his mind fails, be considerate of him. Revile him not all the days of his life. Kindness to a father will not be forgotten, firmly planted against the debt of your sins. A house is raised in justice to you.
I think I have a question now.
Where's the daughter?
That's a good question. I think the question that comes to me is a memory of honoring a parent, because this reading is talking, and they use the word 3 times honoring, and then there's also obeying. And
the first thing that comes to my mind is with my father. This is a number of years ago, probably 20 plus. I'm sure it's 20 plus years ago, that my dad said, would you as a family like to participate in a fantasy football league? And my father, who loves football and fantasy football, my father who loves family and really loves to have all of us together, this was his request. And because we all love and honor my dad, both my sisters and our spouses, we said yes. That was an easy thing. So we still do our fantasy football league with my dad as the commissioner, but that certainly came from that place of honoring him, the first yes.
That's beautiful. When I read this reading, my heart went straight to all the people, and I can include myself in this, who have one or more parents that are not maybe safe for them. And so the moral imperatives of this reading are more complicated than the reading implies.
Yes.
And I just want to acknowledge that going forward, because I think certainly this Sunday and all the time, we are bombarded by messages of loving parents. And of course, that is a beautiful thing if that is safe and good for us to do. But it isn't always. And to acknowledge and support those who needed to separate from parents for various reasons. There was a wonderful article in the New York Times. They have a Ask the Therapist, and she's really brilliant. And the question was, and it was just in the paper, I don't want to go, my mother was very abusive or hard, and I don't want to go to her funeral. And so the therapist was teasing out the story of this guy and how protecting oneself and protecting one's own family is a beautiful, noble thing to do. But finding compassion is also a healthy thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can look to this reading to remind us that having compassion for parents, we can generally find that even when we don't forgive them. And there was a story about that, like couldn't forgive but could find compassion for. So that's a lot to say. I can give a memory too of honoring my dad. He was a World War II vet. My dad had an honor flight.
Wow.
And when he came back to O'Hare, I was there with others to meet him, and what an emotional, beautiful tribute that was. Yeah.
And yes, to your thought, an important one about children who don't have safe parents, and how to honor them from a distance.
Yeah.
That's sometimes necessary, and that forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. Because the scriptures are never asking anyone to put themselves in an unsafe place.
Right. That we have to, yes, love ourselves as much as we love another. And then there's the whole issue of codependency, because sometimes to hold a boundary is not only good for me, but ultimately good for the other person who can experience something they need to experience. So honoring one's parents is ultimately good for my soul if it's possible to do it, but repressing feelings is bad for my soul. So let's not do that.
Well, and that's not really honoring anyway. If I'm with someone and just gritting my teeth, that's really not honoring them.
Good point.
And
right.
It's sometimes telling her truth is honoring. What I read is that kindness is almsgiving in this reading. That being kind is giving alms, right? Like we give alms to the poor. That kindness is another way to do that, not just financially.
That it pays a debt is what it says here. It moves the evolution forward if I'm able to be kind. And then I wonder about the inner father, the inner mother, because I think all of these archetypes, I can have the inner mother in me and honor that maternal part of me, whether or not I got it on the outside too. So there's that.
Right.
I suppose there was a time when this kind of reading was necessary, but it feels like we've been bludgeoned with it. So he who obeys his father, that feels like a dated thing to say.
Yes, I think for me, it's whether obedience is something I choose, which is a form of humility, as opposed to obedience being thrust upon me and obeying used as a way to control.
I mean, maybe it goes with this idea of honoring that you, Father, have wisdom, and I honor that, and I will take that in me as you give your wisdom to me. I do chafe at, and I love the word discipline, but I chafe at this idea of I will obey.
I think of obeying as creating space in my heart for someone else. Last spring, my parents, who live a little ways from me, asked me to come up for a weekend and help them clean out their basement. This was really important to my mother. And I said, yes, Mother, I will do this. And I went into it with the attitude that whatever my mother asked of me, I would say, yes, Mother, I will do this. I got most of the way there, not fully, but mostly. So for me, that's my choice to be, quote unquote, obedient.
Right. No, that's a great example because the stakes are kind of low, but you can practice the honoring in that way.
Right.
As opposed to, Marcy, I want you to quit your job or move away or, any big thing that would be very hard to, quote, obey. And,
Right.
religious sisters take the vow of obedience,
Mm-hmm.
and
so do religious brothers.
it's beautiful.
And it used to be the sisters that I work for, they would talk about, like, in the spring, there was trunk day where they packed up at the end of the school year. They were teachers, packed up all their things in the trunk and wait. And then they would get their assignment. And it might be that they stay and then they unpack their trunk with all their personal items. Or it might be that they moved and that they're ready. But that idea of obedience has changed and evolved, even in religious life, to be a conversation, and that everyone is listening to God and obedient to God's will and not another human.
I like that. Did you hear the story? I think they were 3 German nuns. They were in their 90s, or religious sisters. They escaped the home that they were put into.
And went back to their convent that was closed. Was it going to be sold?
Maybe it was going to be sold, yes. And the people above them said, you've got to be obedient. They were wagging the finger at these nuns. We told you what we're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, you didn't tell us this. You told us we were only going to be there for a short time in the home.
Mm.
And now they're kind of famous.
Yes.
They're in their 90s and they made their escape. Yeah.
Right? And I can feel the joy in me as I think about them. Like, yeah, you go, ladies.
I just wonder if during this wild period when Sirach was writing, if we needed this message of, hey, settle down, wild people, and do this good thing. And now we need a different message. I don't know, but this reading just feels like a wagging finger I don't need.
I agree.
So maybe that shows the evolution of our humanity, that this message is like, okay, we know this. This is kind of basic, but maybe it needed to be said before.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that'd be a nice way to frame this.
Well, it's
like it's a very old message. We don't need it as much.
And God bless the daughters.
Right.
Because at least today, it's often the daughters who really manage and care for their parents when they're elderly.
Our second reading is to the Colossians. Sisters and brothers, put on as God's chosen ones, holy and beloved, heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another, if one has a grievance against another, as the Lord has forgiven you, so must you also do. And over all these put on love, that is the bond of perfection. And let the peace of Christ control your hearts, the peace into which you were also called in one body. And be thankful. Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly, as in all wisdom you teach, and admonishing one another, singing hymns, psalms, and spiritual songs with gratitude in your hearts to God. And whatever you do in word or in deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through him. Wives, be submissive to your husbands, as is proper in the Lord. Husbands, love your wives, and avoid any bitterness toward them. Children, obey your parents in everything, for this is pleasing to the Lord. Fathers, do not provoke your children, so they may not become discouraged.
Do you want to hear some irony?
Yeah, irony. Good.
Okay, so the first half of this reading, which is so beautiful, put on God's chosen ones, heartfelt compassion, kindness, humility. Just the first half of this, Ed and I had read at our wedding. We just stopped before we got to the problematic verses. So I love the first half of this reading.
Oh, sure.
It's so beautiful.
It's true.
But nobody really pays attention to it because everyone's so on fire with the second half.
This time when I read it, when it said, children, obey your parents, for this is pleasing to the Lord, and you won't get gifts from Santa Claus either. I mean, it does feel a little manipulative.
Well, yes. Okay. So I looked up, what does that mean, in Greek? Well, it means exactly what we think it does.
Oh, wow.
To be under in the order, right? To fall in line, to be subordinate. So there's nothing in translation there. That's really the real word. But, at the time in this super patriarchal society, which we're not that far from, women were absolutely meant to be subordinate, and everyone knew it. It's the second line, husbands, love your wives and avoid bitterness towards them. That's the news. That's the good news, right? Everyone knows children obey your parents, but the good news is that fathers, apparently particularly, don't provoke your children. We've talked about this before, that these letters don't necessarily try to change, the whole political construct, and yet create space for the Spirit to work. Now, all that being said, this scripture passage has been used to abuse women for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it's terrible.
Yeah, I like what you said a lot, and I hadn't really thought about what was going to get people's attention at the time it was written, and it would be very clear to them that this is kind of revolutionary. And today, what would we say to make it revolutionary? I think that marriage to me is a really fascinating thing, and it is a sacrament because something really does profoundly happen, I'm experiencing, when there's enough trust and love and safety that Rick can be kind of I'm having trouble finding the word, that I subordinate myself to him in the sense that his happiness, his health is as important to me as my own. Really. And I know people with kids have that kind of maybe automatically. I don't know if it's automatic, but I need to speak of it in terms of marriage. And that is a very mysterious, amazing place. But you don't get there by telling somebody to just do it. It's not like this simple, easy, snap your fingers and do it. It's very hard. It's the individuation process itself.
I love what you say, and I see all that love that you have for Rick, as I know you both. But I also see all the love Rick has for you and how your health, your safety is as important to him as his own. So it's the mutuality.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's where we need to get.
Yeah, sorry, that was implied in my thoughts, but I'm glad you said it. Yeah, it has to be mutual.
Right. Well, and that's what makes it work. That's what makes a marriage or partnership work, is mutuality, that both individuals are looking out for the other and loving them so much they would do anything for the other.
Right. And it makes it a sacrament.
Yes.
I mean, that's an easy phrase to say, but I guess I could also say it makes it a mystery. It makes it a holy thing that is beyond the sum of its parts. It's just
right. Well, and a sacrament is a visible reality that expresses an invisible truth. So that sacrament of marriage, expressing that outward visible love of something that's so deep and profound.
So this is the message I like to ponder today about this mystery of a love that is that deep, not this other thing we are reading, which is, I will sacrifice myself in a way that may not be healthy for me or the other person. It lacks a certain psychological sophistication that we now have. It's sort of like if we were reading a medical treatment of that period of time versus what we know now. And I think what we know now about psychological health, we can't just take this reading at face value.
No, absolutely not. And we have to remember that all of these were written for particular people at a particular time in a specific culture. And this household code, which is what it is, was popular in Hellenistic philosophy.
Okay.
At the time. And it was to help create order within the society. And so as these early followers of Jesus were trying to look good, like they were going to be a part of society and not disrupt the whole order, and yet they're subtly pushing up against it. Unfortunately, we get stuck. And they were not both God and human. So as you said, they don't have that psychological sophistication.
Yeah, and it kind of stops me, your description, because I think about if Paul's focus is establishing order, that's not Jesus's focus. And so the tension between wanting to build a church versus wanting to kind of honor the disruptive nature of God to transform things on a deeper level than the society.
Right. To, I think this is in part to try to avoid persecution, right? Don't stand out, part of society. And yet that's not what Jesus does.
Yeah.
Jesus ends up on the cross. He's completely persecuted.
So Paul's conservatism is something that I think as church we want to acknowledge. It is what it is, and let's not pretend, and let's be willing to challenge some of it.
Right, to understand the context in which it was written and to say, does that apply today? No, actually it doesn't.
And we can look to Paul's desire for love and us to love, and we can lean into that, but not in some of the ways he describes.
Yeah, when I teach the Bible to my 7th and 8th graders, I'm always challenging them. What is the deeper truth? What
Yes.
is the deeper truth? And what does this scripture say to me today?
That's beautiful. And so we get Paul saying, if one has a grievance against another, as the Lord has forgiven you, so must you also do. You must forgive. And I think a more psychologically sophisticated way of approaching this would be to say, forgiveness is good for the soul and it's a good thing to work towards, but the time it takes can vary greatly. And to love oneself and support oneself in the journey of forgiveness. It's a journey, it's not a decision.
And even if my brain decides to forgive, it takes a while for my heart to get there.
Exactly.
And just sometimes we notice the word perfection that's in here. It says, and over all these put on love. That is the bond of perfection. So just to remember that perfection in this context is about wholeness and completeness, not about doing things perfectly.
Good.
Without error. It's just about, what a great reading.
Hi.
If only it wasn't used to hurt. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When the Magi had departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, Rise, take the child and his mother, flee to Egypt, and stay there until I tell you. Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him. Joseph rose and took the child and his mother by night and departed for Egypt. He stayed there until the death of Herod, that what the Lord had said through the prophet might be fulfilled. Out of Egypt I called my son.
When Herod had died, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, Rise, take the child and his mother and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead. He rose, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was ruling over Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go back there. And because he had been warned in a dream, he departed for the region of Galilee. He went and dwelt in a town called Nazareth, so that what had been spoken through the prophets might be fulfilled. He shall be called a Nazarene.
Wow, not one, not two, but 3 dreams here for Joseph. And each time he listens. Bless his heart.
Yeah, and I can imagine some kind of snotty family gossip. Joseph, he's moving again based on a dream. And now he's ended up in stupid old Nazareth, this backcountry place. That Joseph, he's just going to have this little bad career. What a loser.
Oh, Joseph, poor guy.
Well, it's about humility all the way along. You know, this is a humble family following the call and not rising in the ranks, but ending up in Nazareth, which is, you know,
Podunk town.
Podunk, yeah.
And, you know, we don't even hear about Mary here, do we?
No, it's all Joseph.
It's all
the time.
Joseph, but like the trust that Mary must have had in her husband. What, like in the middle of the night, he gets this dream and they get up and they go in the middle of the night. And Mary, at least we don't hear her say, What are you doing? This makes no sense, Joseph. I'm not leaving in the middle of the night. We'll talk about it in the morning. But maybe he said, Mary, I had a dream and it was really big. And behold, right? That word again. The angel came to me. Maybe because of Mary's dream and experience with the angels. She's like, okay, we take angels seriously in this family.
Exactly. How wonderful that these two people found each other, because I'm sort of assuming that they are well matched in their devotion to the divine and that they're not easily swayed from it and they're committed to it. And marriages like that are really holy. We have a holy family here based on the way that they love and support each other.
And what a gift that would have been for the child Jesus.
Yeah.
To grow up with that kind of love and respect that they would have for each other and connection to God. That would have been instilled in him in an early age.
I want to bring up Herod here, the destroyer. And so I think about him inside and outside. The inner Herod, the parts of me that are destructive toward the innocent parts of me, that that beat up that I can do to myself, the distrust of the innocent or the fear of the innocent. And then there's the Herod on the outside that we see all the time, the destruction of the innocent. Yeah, I've said this before. I think that this light and dark that happens in our world is part of the evolution. It's part of the engine of the evolution of our species. That the dark motivates us toward growth and growing in knowledge, growing in strength.
In listening to you, I think about, those tender, childlike dreams that have had to be exiled for a time until it was safe for them to come back.
Wow.
Right? Until the Herod, whether it's in me or outside me, was resolved in some way for that dream, for that idea, for that child to return safely.
Good. Wow. Yeah. Well said.
And that timing is everything.
Right. And sometimes the action is to flee and gain some time and space and healing, resting, maybe.
And strength, too, in order to come back different. Because Jesus is a little older now. That child, that idea is a little older and has grown.
So the symbolism of going to Egypt, what might that mean for me? What might it symbolize?
Well, I go to the Old Testament, right? Of even Joseph in the Old Testament bringing the Israelites to Egypt. That's how they got there, because there was a famine. They had to escape. They went into Egypt where they could be fed and nourished and flourished. And also that coming out of Egypt from slavery to freedom.
Okay.
So, which is, pretty specific and literal, but Egypt as a refuge. And then if I stay in my refuge too long, does it become a place where I'm enslaved? That hiding, that running away. If I do that too long, it may become a trap as well.
Well said. When I think about Egypt, I think about it being the foreign place, the place that isn't home. And so needing to go outside of what's comfortable and stay in the unknown is, at least in my life, it's been key toward my own growth, is I spent 10 years in California, and it was like my odyssey, and I learned so much in that time. And I think, getting away from the habitual, sometimes we're called to the wilderness. Guess it's another metaphor for that. Maybe.
Oh, yeah, I can see that. I like how you said that, though, that kind of going away into the wilderness, into the place that's not familiar.
Yeah, and then just waiting there. And that really translates to my life, because I can be in the wilderness and I don't necessarily get to leave until the work there is done. And the work is unconscious sometimes. I don't know what's happening. I'm confused. And I just have to stay there in that place of unknowing.
Until, behold, an angel of the Lord speaks to you in a dream.
Right. It's never an easy dream to interpret for me. It's always really hard. But I would say dream work is a really powerful spiritual activity, a discipline that I would recommend. It's very hard.
And I find dream work much easier if I have someone to talk to about it, right? I have to do my own work of writing down the dream. Although I was really good at keeping a dream journal, and I kept it underneath my bed so like I could write in it right away. And then we got a puppy, and she found it and she chewed up the dream journal.
Whoa, that's it. That's
I thought, well, what is that saying?
Right.
Because, then it all got thrown away. I trust I learned and gained what I needed. Something interesting that was pointed out in the commentary that I read is that Mary and Jesus are not named.
No, they're not.
It's just mother and child. And so the focus really is on Joseph and his choices.
And I think if we want to, we have all those parts inside of us, right? We have the maternal part of us, the paternal, or the part that is out in the world striving, protecting. We have the inner child part of us. So we could work with all of these if we wanted to. And we could look to our dreams and the characters in our dreams to represent these parts too.
Yes, I like that idea of the protector in me that needs to really pay attention because it can be the driver.
Right. And when the driver is asked to go off into the desert for who knows how long, and I'll let you know when you can leave, but just go now. That's hard.
It sure is. It sure is. And can seem, a little wackadoodle. All right, good listeners. Thank you for sticking with us and working with some of these challenging readings and maybe creating some space for new possibility with them. And we certainly send blessings to your family, whatever it looks like, however it is, and trust that where there is love, there is holiness. And thank you, Laura, for being such a great partner.
Thank you, Marcy. And thank you, everyone. I hope you'll share this podcast in this coming to a new year. We're in a new season. And help us grow. We would love that.
Yes, absolutely. Like us, follow us, and definitely tell people about it. So until next year.
See you then.